2x2, 7 rows deep, and rolling up to the start-finish line. Looks like Asher going a little bit off track as the inside.
As they can. Saber making an amazing dive into turn 1, and electroshocks off. Eggful gets the move.
But MNU trying to take a move.
Big contact from 5 different punches.
Big incident with Snowdog, our leader.
As we head into turn row, it's a big crash. It's a big crash between the two title contenders.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Simufur's third round of the GT Legends series. Joining us tonight is Wolfin with me at the commentary booth. I am Newbie, and Polly's at the broadcasting booth, showing us all the actions from tonight. We are at Monza tonight, and it's not the Monza that we know of. It's the 1998 layout. It's a bit weird. The chicanes that we know of at the start of the race usually is a set of chicanes, but for the 1998 layout, it's double chicanes. Wolfin, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well. It's been an interesting morning. I've been keeping an eye on the times and the drivers during the practice session. Things definitely seem interesting after what seemed like a very chaotic round last week. Things are about to get even more chaotic with this. I don't know. We'll see, but with the tight times, I definitely believe that we're going to have something very interesting going on today.
Yeah, from hearing from multiple drivers that it seems like this round's going to be pretty well balanced. Initially, we thought that the Aston Martin's going to be a little bit held back from the numerous BOP attempts that we have seen the stewards try to balance everything out. But after a couple of attempts, as well as a few trial errors from the drivers, it seems like it's going to be a really close fight. It's just more of understanding each car's strong suit as well as their weaknesses to make sure that they maximize their positions on track. Because I think for some cars, it's going to be a little bit annoying to overtake. Some might be faster around the corners than immediately just trail off on the straights. So drivers kind of have to really work on understanding where the car has to go. Speaking of last week, both of us weren't here. Well, I was supposed to be here, but unfortunately, I kind of accidentally slept in. Sorry, Frey. Sorry, Pally. Thanks for stepping in. But I've heard there's a few changes that have been happening last race. Wolfin, do you know what the changes are?
So for this week, we will be having damage on, first off. And that is just to prevent people from kind of getting into the wall and not being punished for it. The second thing is we will have race control for this one, which means we will not have what happened at the beginning of this race, which was absolute chaos. And if something like that were to happen again, the race will be red flagged. So this will definitely help in preventing what happened last week. Super excited because it means that these cars were already unforgiving without damage. Now they're going to be even more unforgiving. All it's going to take for you is to hit a wall at high speed or something like that, as we see. Ooh, just like that. That is, I believe that was Philip Black. Yeah, ACDP. Just not hitting that second chicane quite right and going straight into the wall. And that would be race done if that were to happen on the actual race. But right now we're at practice as we see the timing boards are starting to come in as the first times are showing up on the timing board. We can see that Afon is having an amazing time. They are currently the fastest in practice. There's going to be about a minute left in practice before we switch over to qualifying. And that's when we're really going to start seeing the times come in. So definitely going to be interesting.
You can see that some of the drivers are struggling a little bit. It seems like the curves, from what I've heard in drivers chat, where during the entire week of practice, is that some of the drivers, some of the cars are struggling a bit on the curves. Some have a little bit problems bombing out here and there, and the others just have the usual what you call it habits of taking curbs, and if they don't take the curbs right, and some of them actually can't take curbs really well here, they might have issues. Like you see here, some of the physics on the cars might not behave really well as they hit the curbs really hard, but some of them you have to, because if you don't take the curbs well, you kind of lose out a little bit of time here and there. You don't want to lose out time when most of the track is basically just straights.
Yeah, absolutely. But the big thing about these cars is that, again, these have no TC except the Aston. But they all don't have ABS.
They have the stewards have removed TC on the Aston, so the Aston actually does not have TC now.
Okay. Well, then none of these cars have TC or ABS, so that makes it incredibly hard, incredibly unforgiving. If you take a corner wrong, you're not really going to be able to recover because you really don't have anything to kind of save you and keep the car stable. So I foresee if somebody goes a little bit too deep into turn one or hits a curb wrong, it could end in disaster. As we're following along now with Newt, as you can see, the TC, like I said, no TC, no ABS, and they just ate those curbs and almost spun, but they were able to save it. Now heading with Luke as they head down the Parabolica, I believe. Yes, this is the Parabolica. Yeah, heading down the Parabolica into the main straight. So
yeah, I was gonna, as you can see there, it's you kind of have to really maximize on the curbs to make sure that you get every every little bit of track limits as you must get, because at the end of the day, the first set of chicanes, there used to be one set of chicanes. Well, it's now one set of chicanes. It used to be two sets. And if you don't really get maximize your exits, you kind of lose a bunch of time there, because you have Curva Grande right after that. That basically, if you don't have a good exit, basically slows you down all the way to Variante della Roggia, which is pretty strong on having a chance of being overtaken. But speaking of which, last week's standings, we should take a look at those. We have a few position changes. Sarah Wuschel has now gained 3 positions after last week and is now at 43 points in P1. RK is still in P2 in the Ferrari. Is that Luke in the Lamborghini has gained 2 positions and is now in P3. A few position changes since last week, it seems. But I think of all these, as you can see here in P6, Rafael in the Ferrari has gained 29 spots. That is they definitely had some good points last week, it seems.
Yeah, they definitely looks like they did really well, and were able to get, I believe they were able to get in the top, like a podium, which really helped them out and got them all the way up to 7th. Super exciting. And I'm gonna be honest, it honestly seems like it's gonna be anyone's championship, because the points gap between the top 3 is not that massive. RK only 1 point ahead of the leader as we go down the line. Sierra in P15, followed by Damon and Fez, Adrian in 18th, Afon Yeager in 19th, Parker in 20th, Philip Blackwood in 21st. But
I was gonna say, it seems like some of the drivers did get points, and as you can see from the standings at the back here, once you get points, you really gain a lot of positions here, because at the back here you can see most of them only have 1 to 2 points here and there. So it seems like that if drivers can survive here in Monza, we might have a chance of getting points and maybe push yourself pretty high up in the standings. There are currently 20, actually no, that's not 21 drivers. There's 19 drivers on the grid tonight, 21 including the few of us on the grid. So it could be an interesting fight for some of the drivers at the back that want points. But speaking of the back, it's still up for anyone's game. It's pretty balanced tonight, as we have said earlier today. And who do you think is gonna be the few that we should really look into tonight?
I was looking at the times in practice, and Afon Yeager was actually saying some pretty good times. They're in the midfield currently, but they seem to be having a really good time here at Monza. So I could definitely see them being at least in the top 5 or the top 10. Sarah, again, would be another one, as all of the cars are now rolling out and getting their qualifying sessions. This is, unlike our ACC races, these are not split. It is every person for themselves, and they have a half hour to set a decent time as we follow along now with Fraser. Yeah, they were one of the first to get out, which is lucky to them, and they now have almost like a whole 5 or 6 car lengths to themselves. So that's going to be very lucky for them.
Yeah, but as you could say, it's as you said just then, half an hour of qualifying. But everyone's coming out right now. Why? Because everyone wants a tow. At the end of the day, this is Monza, and top speed is everything. So drivers really want to make sure they find their own pockets to be in, kind of, silently negotiating between each other on who gets to have a tow. Here and there, some might really don't want their competitors to have a tow, but at the end of the day, we are a fun league after all. So drivers might silently negotiate between themselves, maybe in their own chat, but they can't really be on their own chat as of right now since they have race control. But if they do, they might have had some previous negotiations on having turns in taking their turns in qualifying. But right now we see Sarah going on their outlap. They're on their own, not sure how they will fare within the straights, but would you want to have a drive along, or will I be the one doing drive along this time around?
You can. Why not?
Yeah, why not, right? So coming down, Monza in the straights, turn 1, turn 2. It's supposed to be a chicane, but now there's 2 sets of chicanes. Coming in, turn left and right. Oh, and then take as much curb as you can. Really nice exit here. Hopefully that is within track limits. It looked like there was a little bit of a bump coming down into turn 2. But right now in Curva Grande, taking the inside line as much as possible before you have to go on the strong braking point of Ralenti Della Roggia. Brake pretty hard on the brakes. Make sure you don't lock up the brakes as you take the curves here as much as what you can without spinning out the car. Pretty nice. Coming down the 2 Lasmos. That's the Lasmos that we really know of. Pretty strong run by Wushu right now. So good to see that they're still going strong here. And is that a good exit? That should be a good exit. Pretty nice and planted the Murcielago right here, coming down into the straights before Varianti Ascari. So pretty nice run for them, even though they don't have a tow in front. I'm not sure if Wushu would like to have it. I'm not sure if Wushu would like to have a tow in front, but they have a purple sector 1 and purple sector 2 right now. So it's definitely a good run by them, coming down into a good exit on Ascari before they come into Parabolica. It's really where the things make or break. Some drivers have had good runs in Sector 1 and Sector 2 and basically lost it in Sector 3. So Sarah has to make sure that they don't mess it up this time around, hugging on the inside, pretty patient on the throttle as they come out into Parabolica, hugging on the inside, not extending on the outside, but let's see what lap time do they get. They will get a 1 minute 55.08 098. That gives them P1, actually 144. Sorry, the timing was a bit slow, and that's going to be the first time set by Wushu. And it's up to the rest of the grid to see what lap times they get. Sidecar is the second one to go about at 146.2. 2-second gap for it now as the time slowly starts to get in. We'll see how close the other competitors are to Wushu as the qualifying continues to go along.
Yeah, looking right now, it looks like the times are coming in. Wushu looks like they've just set an astronomical lap, almost 2 seconds ahead of everyone that has come in so far. I'm waiting to see if somebody is going to get close. I don't really see anyone. Yeah, I don't see anyone really getting close. We have Afine kind of close. They have not set their time yet. They're coming out of the Parabolica right now. I am looking at a improvement, but I think it's going to be either close or maybe like a half a second off.
Yeah, it seems like they had a slow sector 1 according to the timing sheet, so they definitely had a slow out lap. They might have had something happening at the start, so this is going to be their proper lap. We might see some improvements in sector 1 as things go by, but as you can see here, every driver taking the turn 1 and 2 pretty harsh on the car, but it's what you have to do to make sure you get a good lap time but it's definitely risky for some of the drivers. As you can see here, the cars just bounce around at the curbs. You have to do it. You have to be really abusive on the car to get any sort of lap time, but it's gonna be what it takes. But F1 Jaeger right now, you can see here, at 28.4 second for sectors. Definitely one of the stronger first sectors that we have here. So it's up to see what lap times to get for the Sector 2 and Sector 3. And if it last lap's anything to go by, it seems like it's going to be a really close lap for F1 Jaeger if it's against Sarah.
Yeah, F1 actually set the same Sector 2 time as Sarah. If they can improve on that, then that will be great. I'm keeping an eye on it right now. It looks like... Yeah, it's the same. The exact same as they did in the previous lap. Going a little wide, though, going out of Ascari. That may cost them a little bit of time going into the Parabolica. Long run down toward the Parabolica. They do have a little bit of traffic, though, so this could either help or hurt them as they head now down toward into the Parabolica. It looks like it'll be fairly close. Last time did not get set. They must have gone out of track limits. Here they come down toward the line. It's going to be... a P2?
Maybe P2.
Wow. Yeah, by 3/10.
Yeah, strong results by F1 here. So definitely nice results that they had. It's definitely the closest we've seen, a 3.5 gap between Wushel and F1. So the next one behind them is definitely Newt right now, 7 tenths behind F1. So it's definitely a really close fight between all of them.
Yeah, gap is only under a second between these three drivers. But this is also still early in qualifying. People are probably going to be setting or making some various setup changes to see if they can maybe eke out maybe a couple tenths more and maybe gain a couple spots. I am looking at the times. Afon actually beat Sarah in Sector 3. They beat them by 2 tenths. They currently hold the purple Sector 3. So if they can improve in the other two sectors, they may have a podium or a pole on their hands, as we see Philip get very loose going out of the second chicane and into the Lesmos and going very wide because of it. I think that... Yeah, I don't think it's going to count. I think they went fairly a little bit too wide going into Lesmo 1, so...
You can't really blame him. Phil's pushing really hard right now because the gap between Newt in P3 and Phil is actually 500ths of a second between the two of them. So Phil's definitely pushing every last track limit they can get away with just to get that P3 away from Newt. They definitely want to make sure they get a good start here, given that they seem to be really strong this time around.
Yeah, they definitely seem like they definitely are very strong in this here at Monza, and we're now following along with Xavier, currently P5, and they've improved on their Sector 1, however, they've not in their Sector 2, but they definitely seem like they're going to improve on their Sector 3 so far. Is it going to be enough to gain a position? They only need about, well, they just need to set a lap, it looks like, because it looks like their previous time was a lot slower than prior, but it looks good so far as they head down into Parabolica with a lockup.
Yeah, it seems like looking at their relative sector times, they definitely are going to be part of the pre-fast cars in front. They might have just had a little bit of an off on the exit of Parabolica the previous laps, but right now Xavier has set still a 1:45.7, so their slowest sector is still the last sector, so they have some time to be had. Maybe it's just the weakness of the Aston Martin as they see them sliding around, taking as much curb as they can, bouncing around on these track curves. They're a little bit deadly if you don't stabilize the car as you put the power down. But it seems like it's just might be a little bit of a struggle for the Aston Martin as the Viper of Avon pushing the limits of the track. It's trying to still get a good lap time to get to beat Sarah. We see a purple sector 2 with 3 tenths faster, and also a faster sector 1 as well, 28.0 compared to Bushel's 28.2 on the previous lap. So we'll have to see what kind of sector 3 do they get. Right now they're still maximizing the exit of Parabolica compared to Bushel's first lap that we have saw. So we'll see what lap times do they get as they cross the line here. Wait for the timing sheets to actually set, and that will be a 1:44.5. Still not enough compared to Wushel, and they have sent themselves back into the pits just to make some tweaks, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, they were only 2/10 off. As we see out of nowhere, Philip Blackwood with a 144.5, just eking out Afon for that P2 spot. They came out of nowhere and he just sent it in this set of chicanes. I mean, I don't blame them, but that is a little bit dangerous. As we see, I think somebody just went off there into the second chicane.
Oh,
yeah, that was Wushel. Oh no!
They might have got a little bit distracted by what has happened, but I think at the same time as well, the curbs you really have to really mount them, so they might have a little bit distracted, but also might have just took a little bit too much of a curb. I didn't even notice that the straights of Monza has a little bit of a bump at the middle part of the track, so it's definitely interesting to see the cars go up and down before they have to attack the curbs in turn 1 and turn 2. But these cars are getting abused as they should. They are race cars after all, and the Aston just roaring through the circuit. As we see here, Xavier, that's MNU, trying to go for another lap. We'll see where they are gonna get themselves into. They're currently P4. They did have a purple sector 2 previously, but that was previous lap though. They still have to carry that purple sector 2 if they could, as they go a little bit spinny on the track. Definitely a hard beast to tame, but currently we'll see how things go. Sector 1 still pretty competitive with 28.3. Wait for them to cross into Ascari to see what the sector 2 times are, but on board of the Aston Martin, loud as ever, is coming to Ascari with a 36.1, a little bit slower than the previous purple sector, but it was still pretty fast as they come into the third sector. Oh, and that's the lap gone. They have on into the wall. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, straight into the wall, and unfortunately, that's a decent lap done. As we follow along now with Oily Rags, as they head, I believe this is on their way to Ascari. Yes, this is on the way to Ascari, out of Lesmo 2. They are currently, they have an improvement in Sector 2. They currently only need about a 10th to gain P6 from their teammate Nude, who set a 145. Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong time. They need about 5/10. But they definitely seem like they're on a roll here. They could improve heading out of the Parabolica now. This will definitely be an interesting one here. They come down the main straight. Is it going to be enough?
Well, to see, but no matter what, they're still the fastest lister on the track right now with a 145.59. Still pretty fast for a car that's not really used much apparently on this grid. But they have Wushel had just came out right behind them. Not sure if Wushel wants a tow or not. That's I think up to. Oh, never mind. Oily has decided to just put in the pits as Wushel continues to go out for a different that's not second lap. That's for the new flying lap. This is their out lap as they try to warm themselves up before a flying lap.
Yeah, and I'd also like to point out saying P5, 6, and 7, exact same sector 3 times. 40.7.
That's interesting.
Actually, and even more interesting, Luke Parker's only a 10th off them. It's a 40.6. So the gap between 4th and 7th on the final sector is only a 10. That's gonna be huge in the race. But even more, if they can improve if these three can improve in the last sector, they can maybe gain a spot. As we see Newt unfortunately losing a little bit of time, and now at a 40.7.
Yeah, the Newt has definitely been dropping off the leaderboard as the time has gone on. Drivers have slowly understood what kind of track limits they could take, and also just comfortable with the track conditions right now. There is a little bit of a wind, as you can see here, 6 kilometers per hour wind. Some drivers might feel it, some drivers might not, but it's still a little bit of a factor to put into account for as you're pushing the limits of these cars. So some might feel a little bit of a tailwind or headwind coming down to certain corners, so that might put them a little bit off on certain tracks. Wushel's going to start their firing lap right now, trying to get a new lap time if they could, to push themselves a bit ahead. But at the end of the day, you gotta remember as well that this is qualifying. As much as you push it, As you can see here, some of the drivers have already pushed over the limits in qualifying. You don't want that to happen in the race. At the end of the day, you can't win races if you don't finish the races. So drivers have to be really careful in understanding what they can do in qualifying and what they can do in the race. Drivers, some of them may crack under pressure. I hope none of them crack under pressure, but that's definitely one way to get yourself positions in the race. So hopefully these drivers should be calm and collected in the race in 15 minutes time.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out Wushel as far as, remember, this is also a standing start. So Wushel has a huge advantage off this because when you look at last week at Road America, Wushel had an insane launch. They went, I think they gave like, what was it, like 8-9 positions? Yeah, it was 5th. It was from 5th, actually. I'm sorry. It was from 5th to the lead, and then they held it. So if Sarah can maintain this lead, they could effectively run away with it like they did last week. And it looks like the Murcielago does have a lot more advantage, or not a lot more, but a little bit more advantage in the straights than, say, the Viper or the Aston, as Wushel now heading down toward the Parabolica. No improvement on the times at the moment. I don't think this is going to be really any improvement to their best lap, but as they head down toward the main straight, the answer is going to be no. Yeah, 147. So as we see, somebody's in the grass. I don't know how that happened. That was MNU in the grass.
Boy.
Oh, that's not where you want to pass somebody. I don't know who
That is
that
some
was.
traffic.
Yeah, that was probably the worst place to catch traffic, and that'll be that lap almost immediately abandoned. As we follow along now with S-Spirit as they head down toward turn 1 and turn 2. I believe they're on their out lap. And now I don't think they've set any times as far as I'm aware.
S-Spirit's in P9 right now in the 146.6. That was the previous time. So the name is at S-Spirit, so that's why you see them with the word at the standings at P9. Pretty good results for them. They did have a new personal best for sector 1, 2, and 3 last lap. So they have pushing it a little bit too hard there again. But they definitely seem like they have potential. It's just that they make sure they string it a very good lap to get any sort of improvements in the standings.
Yeah, and another one trying to improve on their lap times is Suzuka as they head down toward Parabolica. Or no, I'm sorry. This is the first. This is Curva Grande. They're now heading to the second chicane, or technically third chicane, as they seem to be on a little bit of a flyer. Looking now, it looks like they are still a little.
Sector.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Afon with the first purple sector. They're definitely on a flyer.
Oh, I see that.
Now, yeah, I just happened to look over. I was like, wait a minute. Afon's on an absolute tear right now, heading down into the second chicane. This could be one this could be the one that Afon needs to get into P1, heading now towards Lesmo 1, taking it nice and smooth, and then into Lesmo 2. So far, so good. I'm keeping an eye on the sector times. I believe the sector 2 will be after Lesmo 2.
It should be around Ascaria. We'll see sector 2. But looking at this, if they don't even get P1, they will definitely get P2 because the gap between Philip in P2 and Afon in P3 is 5,000ths of a second. So it's definitely, regardless of how things improve, they definitely will get P2 at this rate. But they did not have a really good sector 2 apparently with 38.2. So it's pretty slow sector 2. They might still maintain P3 for now, unless they can string a good lap in sector 3, just to get a little bit ahead of Philip in P2.
Yeah, all they need is, like you said, 8,000ths of a second. That is not a lot of time at all. Here we go, heading to the Parabolica. This will be, at the very least, a P2, unless they have an absolute send of a sector 3. The answer is going to be
Where is it? No.
Yeah,
They had yeah, they backed off a little bit. I think they're gonna have another flying lap this time around. Hopefully, they have a good lap stringed up in this lap. But we'll have to see later as the sector time slowly comes in. But looking at the standings right now, if you see a lot of close gaps here, we see small pockets here. We see P4 to P7 all within a small 1 to 2 tenths of a gap, and then we'll see closer down into the field P12 with Blade all the way to P14 with Skylar, all within a few tenths of each other. So definitely a very close standing as you see here between all of them. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how everything goes. Still, iPhone had done again a purple sector 1 with a 27.9, but Xavier has done a new purple sector 2. So we're all still saying purple sectors here and there, even though the timing sheets have slowly turned from a very green patch slowly to white. So it's up to everyone to see what they can do to maximize track limits to get every last position in the standings.
Yeah, here we go. We're heading now towards the Shari, and Afon takes that sector too. It's a purple sector too, but they get very loose in the Skari. That's going to cost them so much time. I think that's going to cost them a little bit too much time for the pole, but they are at the very least going to get a P2 out of this. Now, here we go toward the Parabolica. All they have to do is one long hairpin, and they get it. Let's see. Here we go. Heading toward the Parabolica. Heading out of the Parabolica. It's full gas. Here we go. Is it going to be enough? It's going to be very close. It's going to be...
Oh. 1.47.
They lost it, yeah.
But someone who didn't lose it was Xavier. Xavier rank in P4. It's now in P4 with 1:44.674. Definitely their new fastest lap this time around. So definitely a good result for them to get into P4. But A1 has to try again with 8 minutes remaining just to get P2. They really have to get it because it's 5,000s. You gotta find it somewhere. You can't just leave it there, can you now?
No, absolutely. You've got to find the time. You only need 5,000s, and they have been setting purple sectors in 1 and 2. Unfortunately, this lap they did not, but they have the ability to do it. They know they have it. So, I've been in situations like this where I've just been so close, and you just live in your head rent-free because you're just trying so hard to get that one little bit of time, and it's sometimes it can get super frustrating. And I wouldn't be surprised if Afon's kind of getting a little bit frustrated, which is why they got very loose going into Ascari. But then again, Ascari itself is just very unforgiving as Xavier having a fairly nice run through Ascari.
I think,
so far...
sorry.
I was sorry. I don't think this is going to be... This is a warm lap, and now they're slowing down. Slowing down a lot.
Trying to get a gap, I guess. They might just try to get a gap before a run for Parabolic. I was going to say before this that A1 might be getting a little bit into their head because they're gunning for Wushel in P1. Yes, the gap's not that big. It's 2 tenths between P3 and P1. So they might be aiming a bit too far ahead, whereas me at the commentating booth just looking at P2 and they're really gunning for P1. So that might have been why they're pushing it really hard, where they could have just been a little bit safer just to get just finish the lap, and that might have caused them to lose a bit of time here and there.
Yeah, I agree, and it's super unfortunate when something like that happens, especially when you're on such a flyer. All it took was one little corner, and then you lost all that momentum you had, and now you got to try again, and you don't even know if you'll ever get that second chance. I mean, we have about 6 minutes left in practice or qualifying, so that's only going to be about 4 laps at most.
It's about 3 laps actually. With the lap time, it's about 1:44. You'll need about 2 minutes to get out the garage, and then you'll have a few more. Oh yes, MNU just went into the gravel. It's just me sent themselves back into the pits. That's the thing about Assetto Corsa. You have the ability to do so. It's sometimes safer for everyone that you send yourself back into the pits, but it's definitely unfortunate that they have to go out again just to get warm up the tires and everything sorted out again. Phil though, see that they have a green Sector 2 that might push them a little bit further ahead than A1 if they can get their laps right. Oh, the glowing red hot brake rollers as they come across into Parabolica. If they can string it right, they might pull themselves a little bit ahead. from Afon, and that's gonna be more work for Afon to catch into P2. And as the timing cheat crosses, will that be
it's a
Yes,
purple.
it does. It's not
Yeah,
purple. It's a green. It's a purple sector 3. Yes.
Yeah, it was a purple sector 3. That's what I meant to
Oh,
say.
yeah.
It was a purple sector 3. Oh, and they go off. Yeah, they go off in sector in the first chicane again. But they did improve. That gap is
they
now.
did improve.
Yeah, they now brought it from 8,000 to about a tenth, maybe 2/10, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's about currently the gap's about 5,000, so Afon definitely has to put in more work to get in to P2. So I think they can have it. It's more of having to set their expectations as well as not push themselves too hard, or else they're gonna have issues stringing up a lap. As now MNU trying to do a lap again. Still no improvements from them. Currently, the timing sheets are starting to slow down as everyone has pushed out every last bit of the car that they have. I was gonna say, I don't think we talked about this. There's a few interesting tire options as you see here. Daniel, Adrian, as well as Swingley, both all 3 in medium tires. I'm not sure if that's the right call. It might be just them getting used to driving in the medium tires for the race, but definitely if you want to set lap times, definitely gotta do it in the softs.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though they don't last very long, they are the best compound for qualifying, with the added grip. And unfortunately, as we see MNU again, that chicane has been kind of catching a lot of people off guard. As we follow along now with Philip, who is just going on an out lap, so they're going to try again. They've got 3 minutes left, so it'll be this
Just
and
enough for 2
maybe
laps.
one other. Huh?
Yeah. It'd be just enough for 2 laps, given that you still have a little bit of a overtime after qualifying, just for everyone to finish a lap. So long as they don't exceed the track limits, they definitely still have 2 more laps to go.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of, they went very deep into the first chicane. That's going to cost them a lot of time going out of the second. So I don't think this is going to be the lap as they head down toward Curva Grande, or on Curva Grande, I should say. It's definitely the time. The time between the top 3 is there. I don't think this is going to be a runaway race like it was for Wushel in the first race, or in the previous race.
Yeah, but it's gonna be that's unfortunate. They did have a very good sector 1 though, 28-1 for sector, so definitely was on par to be fast. Improvement wise, maybe not, since that it was not a green lap, but it definitely would have been a fast lap for them. Oh, seems to have a new car. Yeah. See that Drift 340 in P13 has 2 green sectors, Sector 2 and Sector 3. Might see an improvement in their standings here as they cross the line for after Parabolica. We'll see where they end up. They seem to have gained a lot of points since last round, so let's see where they end up here. Wolfin, they got themselves a position up from from P13 to P12, pushing themselves ahead of Parker with a 146.7. A good improvement from them.
Yeah, not bad. They are now in P12. Only about a tenth, maybe 2, or I'm sorry, yeah, like around the 10th between them and P10, or P10. So that's definitely very good. It definitely means that they're going to be in the running for at the very least a top 10.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the drivers that are here will be gunning for the top spot, which is currently occupied by Wushel, but some of them definitely wants to be between P5 to P10, and this is definitely a good spot to be in. Maybe just outside, just to try to step away from the chaos that is the start of the race. But then once the grid settles down, it might be a good place for them to be, because they want to make sure that they want to be out of the chaos, but still within contention. 30 seconds remaining for this qualifying session as drivers still try to get their out laps in, as well as pushing as hard as they can. But I think some of the more seasoned drivers that definitely put pit in just to prepare themselves for the race. You gotta make sure you set your fuel strategy right as well as your tire strategy right for the race, or else you're gonna have extra pit stops that you do not want.
Yeah, definitely, and especially since we do have damage on, it's. I was talking with Azure about this. The damage or at least how damage works here, it's not as forgiving as ACC. So unfortunately, excuse
Bless
me.
you.
Thank you. Excuse me, I am suffering from allergies. Anyway, so it's not going to be as forgiving. If you get damage, you're going to be in there a while. I think they said, I think it's like 30 seconds per percent of damage.
Not too familiar with the damage here, but I know for a fact that it's a bit depending on the cars that we have and the mods that we have. It really depends on the damage model, but at the end of the day, it's not time based. They don't really give you a very. It is time based, but they don't really give you a very direct time. They just basically, that's a cut and a half by Wushel here as qualifying ended. But it's not really clear. They don't tell you this. You don't really have a very solid timer. You just have a bar that progresses the entire way through. So you really don't want to take any chances on the damage stuff, especially when you don't even know how much time of damage you get. So it's definitely important for drivers to not mess it up in the start of the race.
Yeah, it would be a lottery. You might think that the tap on the wall was only going to give you a little bit of damage. You go to repair it, and you're sitting there for 30 seconds. That's horrible. So, here we go. Parker is, I believe, going to be the last one out as they come across the line. It's not going to be an improvement, but they did improve the third sector. But that is going to be the last one, and that is going to be qualifying. And Wushel will take P1 and pole position, or will take pole position in qualifying, followed by, I believe it would be Philip, and then Alf Afon in P3.
Yeah, so it's good. It's a good drive for all of them. Currently, the gap between P1 to P4 within 3/10 of each other. Xavier going to be in P4, but after that it will be Luke Parker in P5, Daniel in P6, Adrian Newt in P7, and that's going to be all the drivers within a second of the gap to P1, and then it'll slowly be Vossi in P8, Sidecat in P9, Suzuka in P10, F Spirit in P11, Drift 340 in P12, Parker Olsen in P13, Blade Wolf in P14, Skylar in P15, Fraser McDonald in P16, Swingley in P17, Shay Khan in P18, Phaser in P19, and Maston in P20. That will be the drivers in this race at Monza.
Yeah, definitely. Somewhat of a close race. It looks like you could see, looking at the times, there's going to be pockets. But that's going to make things very interesting because people are going to be in their own little pockets trying to fight for what they can get. And again, this is going to be a standing start. And as we've seen from how Wushel does their starts, it's definitely, I honestly foresee if Wushel can get like another astonishing launch. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to catch her because the launch they had, nobody really could kind of keep. So, and really that's all you need. If you have open air, then you don't have to worry about anything. So, I don't know.
It's all about finding a good bite point, I guess. It's definitely, Wushel definitely has figured out the bite point for the Murcielago, so it's up to the rest of the drivers to make sure that they have a good bite point. Definitely, if you have the hardware to do it, you might get away with setting the bite point on your hand clutch if you have a wheel with a hand clutch. But for some of us that have a pedal clutch, it's more about making sure you don't bog down your car too much, and as well as just don't spin the tires too much. It's a really fine line between messing it up and pushing too hard. So it's definitely important to not mess it up too much, or else you have a few drivers last week that have stalled their cars, and that's gonna be annoying for the rest of the grid.
Yeah, I admittedly, I had my clutch on I have one of those the Moses sequentials, so I had mine on the trigger, and it just felt like every time I would try to get a launch, it was just not good because I would just stall immediately. But then again, that's just an am moment. It's a literal skill issue.
I mean, a clutch button will be a bit risky given how even in real life you kind of have to ease on a bite point. So those that have no have an actual analog clutch, is more about finding where the bite point is. But for those that have a button, it's definitely gonna be horrible for them. It's gonna be a bad time for them once they try to launch it on a standing start. But for the rest, it's more about making sure to get away from the chaos, as well as reminder for the drivers to slow down if there is a chaos in front. There's no point pushing it a bit too hard under a restart. You know, it's fine to lose a couple of seconds to restart rather than having the entire grid fall back into the pits from damages, right?
Exactly. And it's going to be it's going to be hard not to try to run into somebody. And then you also have the chaos of turn 1 at Monza, which in itself is already, scary enough. But I'm going to be honest, I kind of wish that they never got rid of this type of chicane, because it's so much more forgiving than what we have currently at Monza, which is, a sharp left and a sharp right, and 2 sausage curves on either end, which is it's just so much more dangerous, in my opinion. Just the sausage curves are just so much.
Sorry, I was gonna say, I feel like the type of chicane here might be a bit more smooth, given that they're not as sharp. But I got a feeling that as you were saying, that you were worried about a Monza first chicane. Well, if you're worried about one chicane, let us give you 2 chicanes this week.
That is true. That is 100% true. But I think my point still stands, because they are in the same way. As we see, the lights are on. We're waiting for the countdown. As lights are going on, here we go.
Oh.
It's lights out, and away we go. And
it's chaos. The chaos started.
Yeah, here we go. The chaos has started. Absolutely amazing send by Sarah as they head down into turn 1. Afa was able to gain a position, though, going into T1, going out of T1. Here we go. MNU trying to make a move on the inside. No lockup breaks. There's chaos in turn.
It's a red flag. It's a red flag.
Yep.
It is a red flag.
Yep.
And there is a chaos in the race control. Drivers have stopped. Unfortunately, I think even though Wushel has had a good launch, it seems like the red flags have been thrown for some of the drivers at the start of the race. So drivers are gonna slowly get their stuff back together. It's unfortunate that they have issues, but glad that we have a red flag to get everything reset and start again.
Yeah, let's just hope it doesn't happen again. I think it was I don't know who it was. I couldn't tell. But somebody had just spun going into T1, and it just created absolute pandemonium going into the into that corner, which has now brought up the red flag. So we're gonna try again. Again, we do apologize. It's gonna be a little bit of a wait. So just judging off that start, Newbie, do you think Sarah can repeat and maybe try to run away with it again? Because it looked like, because of Sarah's amazing launch, they gained, I almost want to say, what was it, a second?
I'm not sure, honestly, because I was just trying to observe the background of all of it, but definitely seen that Wushel has had a very good launch there. I think Wushel's not too worried about the launch. They know how to launch the car really well. I think it's more up to Phil as well as Afon to basically see what their launch issue was and try again. But I got a feeling that given they have red flagged it, and as drivers, when we have a red flag situation after something has happened, you kind of get on your nerves a bit too much, and that I think that might actually cause Afon and Phil to maybe have issues and actually mess up their launch compared to Wushel. I think Wushel just has it down to a T.
Yeah, I agree. Wushel has it down to a science. As again, we are waiting for the lights to go on. Here we go. Full
Spotlight lights.
And it's lights out and away we go. Here we go. Sarah again with an amazing launch. Here we go. It looks like Oily Rex were able to get an amazing launch going out as Afon again with yet another starting a good launch, getting ahead of Phil Blackwood. As I think there was contact going into turn 1.
There is contact, but everyone is smooth, and some of them have survived turn 1. That's nice to see that everyone is surviving.
Yeah, most of them survived turn 1. There was a little bit of contact going into turn 1. I think somebody went wide as they head down into Curva Grande, as we follow along now with this battle between Oily Rags and I believe that is Vossi, as they head down into the second chicane. So far, so good. Very tight going there. You see, I believe that was the 50 car making an amazing move as they head down into Lesmo 1. Now they just got to defend it. It's early on in the race, but so far, so good.
And so far, so good. Things have definitely settled down for the second start. Kyler has been pushed into last place at Lesmo, but unfortunately, it's a very long hour race, so definitely more time to get back into things. So good to see that drivers have survived it, but at the same time, you know, it's a very long race. 58 minutes remaining on the clock, so drivers really need to take care and be a bit more stable, as you don't win the race at the first few corners doing that. Swingley tries to get by Shay. I think Shay just got a bit caught out in their own throttle and definitely defending really hard here. Oh, who's that going into the wall? That is Phaser. That's Phaser in the wall, going a bit too wide at Ascari. Definitely good that they can rejoin safely, but we'll see how things go for them in the later stages.
Yeah, that's super unfortunate, but as we follow along now, this is Daniel with this is Oily and Luke Parker trying to make a move on the inside. It's gonna be very interesting. This is a very dangerous spot to make a move as we head down into the first chicane, heading down on board now with Sad Cat. Heading down to the second chicane, they were able to get a lot of momentum going on this second chicane. Now catching up to Oily Rags, heading into Curva Grande. Is that momentum going to be enough, though, to get ahead? As we see the races have the line has kind of settled down a little bit. I noticed that. Oh wait, there's trouble with M&U. Yeah, M&U's gone down a lot. They're down in P19. There might have been trouble.
Oh yeah, who's that has gone wide in front of them? That might have been Zsource that has went wide there in front of Sadcast there. So definitely drivers in the chaos are trying to figure out how to navigate as too wide into Monza with these big pocket rocket machines. So it's good to see drivers are slowly recovering. Unfortunately, in that squabble, Oily has gotten P6 as Zsource fallen down into P7. Now Zsource has to defend hard to make sure that Sadcat doesn't take P7 away from them.
Yeah, absolutely. They're gonna have to defend hard because it was only just one mistake. It doesn't mean they can't make up for it later on down the race. As we follow along now with Sad, who's basically got a front row seat to this fight. Or I should say, they're now gaining on Luke. Here we go, another battle. Somebody very wide. That's F-Spirit. Getting in position off, I believe that was Adam. Now heading into Curva Grande, but I don't know what happened there. They went, wait a minute, there's trouble.
That's Blade. It's a Blade and Shay that has gone off. I think that is Shay that has gone off. That was Shay that F-Spirit has had an incident with. Now Blade almost beaching themselves on Parabolica, but glad that, please don't beach yourself there. Just slowly try to recover from the gravel trap. This car is really hard to get away from it. The Parabolica, but thankfully they have gone off, but that is a lot of seconds wasted by Blade. And there's another driver that's gone off. That's Maston.
A lot of cars suddenly losing grip in the Parabolica. I don't know what exactly happened there. It looked like maybe there was just a little bit of contact going into the corner. As we see, it looked like there was a little bit of long cop going into Lesmo 1, but it doesn't look like there's any problems at all. So far so good as we follow along now with Sad, who is slowly but surely gaining on Luke, heading down toward Ascari. Let's see if they can maybe make a move, because the Celine has definitely been better on the straights than the Murcielago, as now heading down toward Ascari. It looks like, unfortunately, they're going to lose a little bit more time now because of it.
But Zizor still getting attacked really hard by Sidecats. Where will Zizor go? Will they go on the inside? Will they go on the outside? They have to make a move before the breaking point, and Sidecat goes on the outside, but Zizor's able to defend on the inside by Parabolica. But will Sidecat have the overrun? They have to make space for each other. That's going to lose them a little bit of time on the straights. It's up to see who will be lining up behind Oily Rags on the straights. I think that's going to be Sidecats right now, but Sidecats a little bit slow on Parabolica just because they have to give space. But right now, with the draft, will Sidecats be able to lunge it on the inside before turn 2? With Zizor, I don't think Zizor's going to allow that, and they have to settle in for their current positions at P8 for now, and maybe try to make an attempt later on in the race.
Yeah, it was super unfortunate. They had that run, and the power of the V8 and the straights would have really helped them out. But unfortunately, as we see, I think that's a Spirit getting very loose. Who was that? That was
Swingley.
That was Swingley.
That's Swingley. That went a bit wide.
Went a little wide. They've spun too, and now they've almost beached themselves into the second chicane. Now they're trying to get out. It looks like, it was very close to hitting somebody, but they were able to get out nicely. Oh, there's somebody else in the yeah, there was somebody else in the gravel. I don't know who that was. Was that Maston? Oh, it was Parker.
Well, that's Parker Olsen, is it? Or is it? It seems like it. Oh no, that's not Parker
that's
Olsen.
not where you want to be!
I think that
very
that is
wide going into Lesmo 1, and it almost cost them everything because they had to send it into the gravel trap to not hit Parker. That was definitely a Cope Brown moment there.
Yeah, so it seems like that was Maston that was in the gravel pits right now, right then. So, sometimes it's better to just, get away into the gravel, lose a couple of positions, than lose the entire race. Right now, though, Afon fighting Sarah Wushel in P1. Seems like the Viper is really strong against the Murcielago right here in the race.
Yeah, they've gained. They are the two of them are on their own. It's Afon with 4/10 ahead of Wushel. Well, that's gotten a lot closer now. They had a lot better run going out of the first chicane. Here we go into the second chicane, heading toward Curva Grande. I don't know if it's going to be enough, though. The Viper definitely has the straight line speed over the Murcielago, but I don't think it's going to be enough this time. But you can see that they're definitely close, and even with this fighting, it's actually been helping them. They've got 5 seconds ahead of the the person behind them in Philip, but I think they lost a lot of time there. They lost another 2/10 because they had a fairly rough run through the chicane, and now they have to make up all that time again.
Yeah, I think this kind of shows the difference between qualifying pace and race pace. Some people qualify with their race pace, while some others qualify in their qualifying pace. So you can see that Philip, because of their qualifying pace, kind of slows down a little bit here and there. But that has basically caused them to lose the toe that they had previously had with the leaders, and now only Afon is within towing distance with Sarah. But you can see here the gap slowly increasing and slowing down, so that as MNU trying to fight who is that? Spirit, I think. No, that's Fraser into Lesmo 2, and Xavier has gotten the corner right, but Fraser definitely won't let that slide if they're able to catch up. But it seems like Xavier in the recovery run might be able to do it, as Spirit still have their blinkers out. They're still closing very close fight with Parker. I think it's to be soon. Oh, I was gonna say that, having a good overtake on Parker and to Ascari. Both going out wide.
Parker sliding into the wall, but I don't think it was that bad. But it's in a very dangerous spot because here comes, I believe that is Shay behind. But it doesn't look like they did a tremendous amount of damage, but that's so much time lost, and I think it was also 3 positions. As we follow along, Shay's gonna, not even gonna fight it. Who knows what type of damage it has. It didn't look like a very severe bonk, but considering the speeds that you're going out of Lesmo 2 there, or out of Ascari, it could have been a lot worse, honestly.
I mean, with 50% damage, so with reduced damage, you won't get as much of a penalty from having such a big impact, but it's still an impact nonetheless. You might get 5Ks down on the straights on your own, but if you're able to tuck into a toe like right now, Parker is behind Shea, they might still be able to recover what they have in terms of damage. So it's gonna be alright. I got a feeling. It's a bit unfortunate that the incident has happened. I think it's just the inherent nervousness of these of these old cars fighting across suboptimal conditions if you're fighting side by side through a track. So it's gonna be up to the drivers to fight it out with their cars. As you can see, last time around, Spirit has had it off before.
Battle for 6th or 5th. Oily Rag sending it absolutely outside on Parabolica on Vossi. But this is not really the place you want to be. You're going to lose so much traction going out of Parabolica. But now we can see Oily's going to try to maybe use the draft and maybe make a move on the inside. Newt should also be worried because this fight is not too far behind them. This is going to be very interesting. Oily with the better positioning. Are they going to be able to send it into turn 1 and maybe get that position? Yes, Vossi is not even going to fight it.
Yeah, I think the toe that they had on the car definitely has helped them to get the position before turn 1, and definitely is slowly climbing it up. Vossi though definitely does want to be as close as possible just to get the benefits of the toe before Oily starts to have it go on Newt in front of them. There's traffic, I think that's Maston slowly coming down into De La Roggia, and we see here a different car behind them as well. So all these cars are fighting for position, all pretty close fight for them. As you can see here, Oily's right now half a second behind Newt, and Vossi has slowly made a gap. It's now 1.2 seconds between the two of them. So Vossi's slowly falling off, but they definitely have to make sure they keep it, or else they might just be on their own. And when they're on their own without a toe, and especially in Monza, you kind of lose a lot of time here.
Yeah, absolutely. And now Oily is on an absolute tear, heading for their bluey teammate of... Ooh. Oh, wait a minute. Battle for the lead. Here we go. It's Afon making a move on the outside on Wushel. Here we go, coming into Parabolica. They're going to break lead, trying to make a move. Is it going to be enough? Absolutely. But they are in the... they stuck it, but unfortunately they're in the suboptimal line. So Wushel's going to try to power down going on the inside, but Afon has now slammed the door shut. Afon now in the lead.
Yeah, but can Wushel get the toe, or will they even try to fight for it? I think the smarter option right now, given that there's 47 minutes remaining in this race, is maybe just work through it. Maybe give themselves a bump draft, work it out just to make sure give themselves a bit more padding behind to the drivers behind, because if they keep fighting, currently the gap between Sarah and Phil is 6 seconds on the interval, but if they keep fighting, the gap's going to close down. If they really want to fight at the end of the race, they might really want to try to give themselves a bit of push, to maybe push that gap to maybe 15 seconds and more. Then when you fight, you don't have to worry about too much. Oh, as F1, massive slide there. Wushel might... Oh, it is. Wushel does have to make a move.
Yeah, it was a massive slide going on in the second chicane. They got very loose and allowed Wushel to make a move going outside the chicane. And now Afon has to try all over again. Intense fighting for the lead. Let's just hope that momentum is they're able to regain their momentum going into Ascari. They were able to get a run last time, and now they're going to try again. That's super unfortunate. I saw it like on the corner of my eye. I was like, wait a minute. I think they just went a little bit too deep going into second chicane. Here we go, heading down toward Curver Grande, and another bit of snap oversteer going out of Ascari. Is it going to cost them a lot of time? They aren't going to have enough.
They're closing in.
Yeah, they're definitely closing in, but I don't think it's going to be enough to go into Parabolica. And yeah, they're letting off. I think they're going to try to go for another run this next lap.
Seems like the Viper is fast, but it looks deadly on this car compared to the Murcielago. So definitely F1's been strangling that car here and there just to make sure it stays on track. And as you can see here, if you even lose sight of it just for a little moment, it's gonna take you with it. And luckily for them, they're not out of the race, but they definitely need to make sure they don't get out of the race, as they're still 45 minutes into this race. You want to make sure that you can still fight with Sarah at the very end of the race.
Agreed. And now, pit lane will be open in about 5 minutes, and then this is the part where things get interesting because they will have to stop as far as their required pit stop. And if I were Afon, I'd like to point out purple sector, or purple lap so far, compared to Wushel, it's over a 10. If you think about it, maybe the smart thing would be for Afon to try to go for the undercut and maybe try to get it that way, because even Wushel's basically at the mercy of Afon once pit lane opens, because they're now going to have to think, do I try to go for an undercut and force Afon to pit, or do I try to maybe hope something else happens and maybe they go for an overcut?
Well, you could say that, but at the same time, you gotta also take into account that Afon's fastest time might be due to the fact that there is tow. So when they pit without tow in front of them, they might have an issue if Wushel can get a tow on the pit exit. So it's really up to see where they show up in the traffic. As you see here, Luke fighting for a position with Drift 340 in. So that's not Drift 340. That's Vossi in front of them. That might happen sooner or later. But going back into the back to the leaders, they really have to plan this out, because if Afon pits in a bit too early, your tires might wear out at the end of the race, and that might not be ideal for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it like right as pit lane opens, to be honest. I would probably wait. We're probably going to start seeing this at probably the half-hour mark, when we're going to start to really see people coming in for their pit stops. Now, following on board, or following this battle with Parker, it definitely seems like once Oily was able to get by Vossi unfortunately just fell off. They weren't able to get the draft, and then they just got kind of put in the no man's land, and now they're now trying to defend their 7th position from Parker.
Yeah, Parker's definitely been putting pretty strong times here. Last lap 2/10 ahead with 47.0 compared to Vossi's 47.29. So definitely the toes helping Luke, Zizors in this case. But actually, might think of it, if the two can work it out, they might actually be able to push each other into Oirex in P5. That's if they think about it. Usually drivers will think about having the position as soon as possible, but if they really want to plan things out and see which car is better in certain sectors, if they really plan it out, they might be able to catch back into P5 if things allow it to happen.
I'm looking at the times compared to the two of them. The times are not that different. So but that's not gonna help. That was a very bad run going out of Ascari. It's gonna give Caesars the momentum coming out of Curve, or going into the Parabolica, as we see Afon once again battle for the lead. Is Afon gonna try to make a move on the outside? Afon with a much better run heading down toward turn 1. Are they gonna late break and maybe send it into turn 1?
No. Oh, it's close though, but it just shows that the tow is definitely helping Afon in this case, and Wushel's really trying really hard to make sure they get ahead as much as they could. But definitely the tow is helping the Viper to stay alive and stay ahead. Stay not ahead, but within the limits between the two of them. As the two of them fight, they touch, but
they jump. Yeah, very argy-bargy there. Zizor's being very aggressive going into turn 1 and almost spun Vossi going into the second chicane, but job done, I guess.
Kind of, but I think Vossi will not be happy about it. Both of them will sustain a little bit of damage, which will be a little bit annoying to repair. But I think drivers have the option to not repair for body panels if they are. And also the fact that body panels are usually a optional thing, so drivers have to turn them on during the pit stop, or else they won't get repairs for them. But Vossi right now behind Zizors right now, they have to make sure they keep it in there, or else they'll start to fall off very quick. But I got a feeling if their pace is alright, they should be able to stay within the toe of Zizor in front of them and still maintain this position and not get swallowed up by 340 right behind them.
Absolutely, and now we're
Bless you.
Yeah,
well, I'll take control over. You right there?
Don't worry, I'm good. I'm good. I swear it's just the allergies.
But I was gonna say Drift 340 though in no man's land right now. I was looking at the timing sheet. Drift 340 is 13 seconds behind Vossi, but Sackhead's right behind them within a second. I was gonna say they might be having a not really good time. Sackhead's almost a second faster than Drift 340, so I think without a doubt within a couple of laps they might be able to just overtake Drift 340 for P8. Sarah though still holding strong for F1 in front, but as you can see the gap is slowly increasing. I think F1's starting to get a little bit tired trying to fight the Viper, or the tire wear has slowly set in. That has caused F1 to slowly fall behind a little bit, and that's gonna be a problem for F1. They have to figure out what they want to do with the tires.
Ooh,
Sarah's going a little bit wide. That is scary for Sarah.
Yeah, a little bit of a wiggle going into Lesmo 1, and that it didn't cost him time though. Still within a second, as this might cause some problems. They are heading out to Ascari, and that is lap traffic. I believe that is Blade Wolf on their recovery drive, and up in Blade with a little bit of a lockup heading into Ascari. But is it going to be an issue? No, they're going to catch them right at the end of Ascari on the main straight heading toward Parabolica. If anything, this may actually hurt Afon because... Oh, no, never mind. Blade's just going to let them both by. Yep, they're just going to let them by, and away they go. But still, even with that wiggle, Sarah was able to pull a fairly substantial gap. I'm wondering if they made a mistake at some point, because they had a fairly large gap originally, or they were fairly close, and then all of a sudden it's down to a second.
It could be the tire wear is definitely starting to show on the Viper, but I think at the same time as well, if you're a driver that's struggling with the Viper, with how deadly it looks, it might be that, you know, as a driver, you're starting to wear off. You have been struggling with this car for 20 minutes straight, and it's time to slowly take a break as the pit window starts to open up. But it's not really a good time to take a break, even though you're very tired. But drivers might start to have fatigue showing up as they continue on this race.
I mean, I'd agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that Afon just set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:45.351 on that previous lap. They are absolutely trying to make up as much time as they can, and I think the one that's having tire problems is Wushel, because again, going into Lesmo 1, they went fairly wide, and it's costing them time. But I think the power of the Lamborghini going down the straights has kind of negated it a little bit, but not by much. And it's definitely going to be interesting. I'm looking at the time difference. It was almost a full 2/10, I want to say, between Wushel and Afon. The things are about to get very interesting.
Yeah, it's nice to see that the gap is starting to close up, but we'll see how they take Parabolica. Wushel has historically been taking Parabolica really close on the inside, especially on the exit, but I know that A1 usually takes it really well on the exit, but they currently, just to make sure that maintain toe, have been keeping it really close on each other, but the gap has started to kind of push away, but it's slowly closing back in again with the toe coming down to turn 1. I got a feeling that A1's tires definitely are losing grip as they are slowly getting gapped on corners, and that's not really ideal for A1, because you might have a good run on the straights, but when it comes to the corners, Wushel's going to have a very strong run up, and that's going to be really not ideal for A1 if they really want to run away with P1.
Yeah, I agree, but again, I mean, A1 definitely has the advantage. I'm looking at the times again. A1 is faster than Wushel this last lap. It was another tenth or two. And now I think A1's trying to get maybe one more push in to see if maybe they can get the position before they have to pit. But you could I agree with you, they are definitely struggling, but I think Wushel may be the one that's struggling a little bit more as we ride on board with A1 trying to catch up to Wushel. But I think they had a little bit of a rough time going into Lesmo 2. They had a little bit of a wiggle, and it's definitely been back and forth. Wushel's faster in some sectors, and then A1 in others, as we see again. A1 is just fighting this car to try to keep up with Wushel.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy car to fight around with. The gap has been closing in and out 5 tenths, 7 tenths, 5 tenths, 7 tenths. It's definitely part of the aero wash that's also affecting the drivers, but at the same time, it's just how insanely hard to drive these cars as we see here. Car in the pit, in the gravel at Parabolica. They definitely, the cars here definitely have a hard time coming out of the gravel trap once they're in it. So drivers definitely really have to be careful not to go all wide too much, as you see here for the fight for P5. I think that is P5 between Luke as well as Vossi behind them. The gap has closed in. As we see it, the tow is really helpful here, and that has made them stay within fighting distance between the two of them. But as we see here, some cars in the gravel trap again. But it's Voss is gonna have a run on Luke if they can get a good run. So we'll see how things go. That was F Spirit I got from the broadcasting booth that has gone white out there. So not a good time for F Spirit right now. Right now, P18 F Spirit has, I think, back into the pits, but I've seen a few cars that are grayed out in the standings. That might be because they're in the pits. Blade Wolf with P16, Blade Wolf. Oh, they're lapped. Blade Wolf with P16, Jasper with P17, F Spirit P18 lapped, and the last one will be Maston in P19. Right now, they are not on the lead lap right now currently, but the fight still is on for a couple of drivers here in the standings. Sarah in P1 and Avon and P2 fighting for positions. Luke as well as Vossi right now, as you see here on screen, fighting for P5 and P6. They're all within a second of each other. The other drivers that are fighting, ooh, wiggle here, but it's still in front bar for Parker, Zizors. But they definitely need to make sure they defend it really well, because Vossi definitely has a run coming down into Ascari sooner or later, and maybe Parabolica then the straights. They definitely have to make sure they don't mess it up again, because the driver behind is very eager, as you see here, Vossi having a small look there in the braking just to make sure that they don't run into the back of Luke. But right now, the two of them really close to each other. They might have a move at Parabolica. Vossi needs to be very patient, think about the run on Parabolica, make sure that they can get a good run. But the Murcielago seems to be more planted than the Saline behind them. So we'll see how these two drivers go along at the as they continue on racing here at Monza. Coming down into this whole thing, we'll see here 14 drivers still on the lead lap. Currently, Wolfin is having some issues in the background. It should be, but right now, still fighting pretty strong here between the two of them, Luke as well as Vossi. So we'll continue on to look at these two, as the fight for P1 and P2 has slowly gapped a bit, as A1's already a second away from Sarah. So it's nice to see that things have slowly settled down, so everyone could kind of take a break. But Fraser in P14 still not letting away for positions, as they're currently right behind Shea. Will they make a move on Parabolica? I think that's going to be ideal, but that's going to be the move they're going to take side by side into Parabolica.
That was a very big send going into turn one. I do apologize. I did have a little bit of a technical mic issue, but it is sorted now. I wanted to bring out earlier that Oily Rags had lost 2 positions. I guess they had a big mistake and are now trying to catch up to that previous battle with Zizors. As we see again, that's a tap! That's a very big tap going into turn one. That was... Ooh, Phaser almost getting into an accident, I think. Yeah, Phaser, I think they're going to let Phaser by for that. To try to, yeah, but I'm going to be honest, that was kind of aggressive from Phaser. I wouldn't have done that. I think that was on Phaser more than Parker.
Yeah, correction. That's Fraser, because we have a Phaser that's not that's currently in P15. That's Adam. But the two of them fighting it out, definitely fighting out for scraps at the back here. Both pretty aggressive, but I'm glad to see they're still a little bit more gentlemen. Shay definitely gave Fraser the position back at the start, but right now, given that Fraser has messed up, they have to fight for that position again in this race.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm looking at the times again. Sarah is gaining, wow, a lot of time. That is Sad Cat in the pits, paying for their stop. And I also like to point out again, Afon has lost a lot of time. They've lost 2 seconds all of a sudden. They must have had a mistake somewhere, because they are now out in the middle of nowhere. and that is not going to be ideal. But we are at the halfway mark. Maybe the tires are just done and they're just losing pace. So I think at this point, maybe Afon, it might be best for Afon to maybe make a move. Here we go. Speaking of moves, it's Vossi on the outside of Zizors on Lesmo 1 into Lesmo 2. And Vossi was able to seal the deal and now start to make that push back to where they catch up to maybe Newt. Or I believe that... Oh, yeah, that is a lap car. I apologize.
Yeah, but I was going to say the halfway mark has ticked over, so drivers definitely might start to get into the pits anytime soon. Some might think about going a bit longer, but given the lap times have fallen off dramatically, I think it's about time drivers start to come in.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that we haven't really seen anyone come in for a stop other than Cat, as... I think, actually, as I say that, I think Philip has come in for... Oh, yeah, HDDC has come in for their stop. But now, the other thing that I want to point out, the guy behind them, that was Oily Rags. That was the faster of the three that we're looking at right now. And they are now on a charge. I think they had a big mistake at some point and lost 2 spots. And now are trying to make up what they had and... doing a good job of it, but now they're going to have to fight through this. And fight through it they will. Here comes Oily coming down the Curva Grande. Zizers had a much worse run, and Zizers has gone wide out of Curva Grande in the turn into the S's. And is Zizers going to try to send it? No, they aren't. They're going to file back down and let Oily have that position and try to fight for another day.
Yeah, it's good. Some mistakes have happened between all the drivers. You can see here the last lap time between all of them. Vossi had a 48 and Luke had a 49.7, both losing time in the fights. Meanwhile, Oily Rex just doing a 146.5. Just, that's the thing about fighting. When you're fighting for positions, you kind of lose a lot of time, and if you don't cooperate to get away from the driver behind, this is what happens. The driver behind just sits back, enjoy themselves as they get the pace from just being on their own, and now Oily Rex just harvesting what patience they have from just sitting back and slowly just pushing consistently, and currently going for Vossi. So in a few laps time, I got a feeling that if Oily Rex doesn't pit right now, they might have a move on Vossi. But it might be a better chance for them to pit, get new tires, than to fight for positions. I think that's the better way to do it. But we'll see how that strategy goes in a few laps time.
Yeah, here we go, heading toward out of the Parabolica. I don't think any of these 3 drivers have pit. No, they have not. They're going to try to fight it out for just a little bit longer. 27 minutes. I believe pit lane will close in about 7 minutes. So, not a lot of time left. Maybe 2 or 3 laps till pit lane closes. And that's not going to be ideal if you wait till the very last second. Unless you feel comfortable in those tires. If the tires feel good and you still have plenty of fuel, then there's no point. But I'm noticing a lot of the times are starting to drop off as we see Drift in a little bit of a battle here with MNU, but MNU able to just fly right on by. And yeah, oh, that is Blade Wolf. I apologize. Now in a battle with Drift, heading up toward Parabolica. So I don't think they're going to have the gap to make any moves here. So it should be maybe in a couple laps, maybe they'll catch up.
We'll see as things go by. But I was gonna say, well, as we were looking at the fight between Zizors and Oily Rex, Newt has pitted in. So definitely more drivers have slowly pitted in. We see Philip, HTBC, Newt, Sidecats, MNU, Drift 340. Some of the drivers definitely have pitted. As you see, who's that in the wall? That's unfortunate for that driver back there. I think that's a lap car, but that's unfortunately how it goes in Monza when you kind of push it a bit too wide. It's the wall that's gonna greet you. But right now, Oily Rex having a move on Vossi on the outside to both of them to make it stick, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But they will have a better run on Parabolica, that will mean that they have a good run on. Oh, as we see Vossi here in the pits, a good call for them and try to not fight for positions. And at the same time, it's pit windows anyways. Might as well just make the move. But Zizor still sticking behind Oli on this battle. Not sure if that's a good call, but we'll see if it will translate well in the standings at the end of the race.
Yeah, definitely. It will be very interesting to see. I was not surprised Vossi just decided to let Oily by. They were the faster of the 3 cars so far, and Oily on a bit of a recovery drive as they catch up toward, I believe that it's another Celine. I don't know who it is.
It's lap traffic, given that Afon's the car in front of them, and Afon and Wushel are still very gapped. And currently the gap, unfortunately for Afon, is now 4.2 seconds. I'm not sure why Afon has not pitted in for a fresh set of tires. That would have been really beneficial for them, but currently they're both still fighting for positions, but Afon's definitely out of the contention for a position with Sarah.
Yeah, super unfortunate. They've kind of just lost so much time. Oh wait, Afon is now pitted. I'm looking at our timing screen now. Afon has now come into pit lane and will serve their stop, and hopefully, I mean, that's a big gap though. That, like, had they done it sooner, they probably would have been better off. But continuing with this battle here, or this dealing with lap traffic as Oily comes down toward Parabolica, will they pit this time around and maybe try to go for the undercut on Vossi? Yep, yes they will. And guess who's following him? It's Zizors. Yeah, they're both coming in.
Yeah, it's good to see that drivers are slowly coming into the pits. They have about 4 minutes remaining in their pit window before it closes. So drivers definitely have to start pitting. The ones remaining that are not pitted right now: Wushel, Suzuka, and I think Blade as well as Phaser. Both all of them have not pitted. They definitely have to do it sooner or later. It's best to do it now, or else they're gonna have issues later with the stewards. Or they might get a drive-through. I'm not sure what the rules are currently on the server or on this round, so we'll see. But drivers, remember, they have to get their pit stops right. If they have set the pit windows right, they will definitely have a self tire change as well as fuel. That's important to make sure that you finish yourself in the race. If not, you're gonna have some issues later on to cross the line at the end of the race. But coming in to these remaining 22 minutes of this race, currently Wushel still strong. I'm not sure why Wushel has not pitted. I think because they're still comfortable in their car. But they did set the fastest lap time with a 1:45.2. They look like they kind of have to pit this lap, given that there's only 2 minutes 44 seconds remaining on the pit window. Not sure how it's counted. They might have to exit the pit before the pits end, or they might have to enter the pits before the window closes. So if they have to pit before they have to come in before the window closes, they have to go in now this lap. If not, they won't have enough time for the lap after to get in. So we'll see how things go. But it seems like Bushel's still not phased by the tire wear, given that they have just set a 1:45.2, the fastest lap off the grid. So there's going to be a point for them, I think, for the fastest lap. We'll see later on in the race.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm honestly a little surprised Wushel is just running it out this late, as we have MNU once again on that recovery drive heading into Lesmo 1 and into Lesmo 2, trying to catch up to, I believe that is Luke. Yeah, it looks like Luke may have had like a very big mistake at some point, probably because of the cold tires, and now in the grips of MNU, as now it looks like they're heading toward Ascari, and MNU just waiting their time, I guess. And
you know what it would have been? It would have been the damage. I got a feeling that Zizors might have decided to take repairs, given that car's pretty clean. Zizors has had some door banging with other drivers on the grid, so they might have accidentally picked up repairs. As you said just now, repairs take a little bit of a time here on these cars, so they might have accidentally taken repairs and given themselves a really long repair time.
Yeah, agreed. And yep, Wushel has now finally come into pit lane and is now now the clock starts. We get to see, will the long overcut as pit lane will be closing in 30 seconds.
Also, I was gonna say, what has happened to F1 Jaeger? They might have actually set repairs as well, given that they're P4. Phillips now in P2. So F1's gonna have to do a very strong recovery drive to get back into P2, I got a feeling. Yeah, even Newt's ahead of them. I got a feeling they might have actually taken repairs. I think drivers need to calculate their strategies again for next round, given that how much repairs cost time for them, and they really have to think about how much time it's worth to repair and not to repair.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised that even A-Fon had damage, because everything on I don't think they even had any issues, to be honest. But now they're going to be on a massive recovery drive with 20 minutes left. Ooh, and an absolute sten going into turn 1. A-Fon trying to make up with whatever time they lost from their pit stop, and super unfortunate, but it's super unfortunate. And that's just a massive gap, though. It's over 20 seconds. The gap between A-Fon and Wushel, it's so unfortunate. I think, unfortunately, they are not going to, unless Wushel makes some titanic mistake. I think Wushel fortunately has this in the bag.
It seems like it. Now my other question would be, did they change tires? Because I'm not too familiar with the tire wear in these cars. Can these tires last the entire race without changing them? It might be that some drivers have decided to not swap the tires. That's why they don't have such a long pit strategy, given that A-Fon doesn't really have damage at the start of the race, nor do we see any sort of door banging, so they don't have repairs. But they might have decided to do repairs as Xavier trying to go on the move with Zzors, and they might stick coming down into the turn before they go into Della Roger, so that might have stuck the two of them side by side coming down into turn 6. Will that stick? I think Zzor is going to stick their nose out. That will not stick, and Xavier has to go for it again at a different time in this race.
Battle with Suzuka heading into Lesmo 1. Suzuka has had a very quiet race so far, but not anymore. Now having to fight, I believe that is not just MNU, but Drift 340 as well.
Stories behind them, yes.
Yeah. Now on board with Drift as they follow behind MNU as they try to catch up and pass Indigo, heading into Ascari.
Oh,
that's not good. That's really not good. That was MNU in the wall at Ascari. They must have just gotten a little bit of dirty air, and unfortunately, it sent them straight to the wall. That must have been huge.
And so much for that. And Suzuka, as I misspoke, I thought that was Zzors. It's now going to have a sigh of relief. And, finally, the car that's been haunting me is now gone. But they're not out of the woods just yet. Drift 340 is now behind Suzuka. They have to really find their pace to make sure that they can run away from it. Suzuka has had a pretty chill race the entire time, so it's good. So now they definitely have to start to focus up and get away from the driver behind, or else they're gonna get swallowed up by the tow that they have behind them, or they might just let them by and use the tow to their advantage. Who knows? So we'll have to see as the clock starts to tick down. 16 minutes or 17 minutes remaining into this race, and see drivers are starting to figure out if swapping out their tires is a good call or not, as we see some of them might have not, given that they have a shorter pit stop compared to the others.
Yeah, definitely. As we see Suzuka locking up a little bit going into the third chicane, but we're no issues heading into Lesmo 1. And I think at this point, if I were Suzuka, I would just be kind of just keeping an eye on Drift, but at the same time, just trying not to make a mistake, because all it's going to take is one mistake, and then Drift will be right on their bumper. But I think so far it's going to look pretty good.
Seems like, yeah, the pace definitely has shown a little bit. Suzuka might have just been set back a little bit with the fight with MNU, but it seems like the gap will slowly start to pull away again, as you see here. Looking at the times, they did pull away a tenth in Sector 1 and 2/10 in Sector 2. So it seems like Suzuka's not going to have too much of a issue, but there's definitely still more time to be had in case of anything happening.
Agreed, and it's gonna be. I mean, at this point, it's just drive. At this point, just drive and try to keep Drift behind you and not make a mistake. And right now, it seems like it's just gonna be so far so good, but I'm kind of looking at the times. This has been the closest battle we have, and I think with after the pit stops, unfortunately, it just seems like everything's just kind of evened out, and we're going to see maybe battles here and there, but I don't foresee anything major as far as gaps go yet. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the times, and
Well, I was gonna say, if you're talking about a fight that might happen, A1's driving the drive of their life, given that they are a second faster than Phil last lap, so they're definitely pushing it as hard as they could. Philip just did 1:46.7 last lap, and A1 just did the fastest time of 1:45.25 in P3, so definitely want to chase back P2 as much as they could. They know that they have lost P1 to Wushel. They definitely don't want to lose P2 to Philip, and that gap is closing second over second every lap. And soon enough, I think we're going to see a fight 10 minutes remaining for P2 into this race.
Yep, 14 minutes on the clock as we continue to follow this battle between Suzuka and Drift, and I'm not gonna lie. It's interesting, but so far it's gonna be, unless Suzuka makes a fairly big mistake. I don't know if Drift's gonna be able to catch up, because Indigo's or Suzuka's just been kind of just keeping it clean, just driving, and so far it's worked out to their advantage.
Seems like it. We'll have to see how things go as the race continues on. Right now, still fight. As you said here previously, the fights slowly have settled down in the race. The only two fights right now are Indigo and Drift 340. The gaps have been pretty far out. Fraser has retired, it seems. So currently, there's still 18 cars on the grid, I think. So unfortunate for drivers that have retired. Hopefully they have a better race next time around. But it seems like some drivers have pitted, some drivers have retired, and we're still glad that they're here, given that it's not. Ooh, Suzuka having a little slide. That is scary.
Yeah, a little bit of a wiggle, and that's going to be huge for Drift, because now they're going to have the momentum going out of Lesmo 2 and into Ascari. Now, heading down toward Ascari, is Drift going to have the momentum to maybe make a move going out of Ascari? And unfortunately, I don't think so. It was a little bit of a wiggle, but I don't think it cost them too much time, as now it looks like Suzuka's just going to use that top-end speed to maybe pull away. You can see Suzuka's trying to wiggle around to try to maybe break that draft from Drift and maybe gain a little bit of a gap as they head into the Parabolica. Nice and smooth. Yeah, I think it worked out, but unfortunately they still have Drift right on their tail, and unless it's going to be interesting. They are going to have a move, but because of this draft, it's going to be very big for Drift to maybe try to gain a little bit of a gap going into turn one.
Yeah, despite the wiggle though, Suzuka still saying a faster time than Drift 340 on the last sector. So definitely, so long as Suzuka maintains, their composure and not mess up, I think it's gonna be hard for Drift 340 to catch up with Suzuka. So Suzuka needs to keep that in mind, to just not be pressured by the driver behind. Focus on yourself, set a good lap. Oh,
A-Fon in trouble. Yeah, A-Fon in trouble. I just happened to know. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just happened to notice that there's damage on the front end. It looks like they've gotten into an accident of some sort, and Newt was able to get by them. I don't know what happened. I don't know what the gap was as well between Damn it, and Phil. Oh, that's major damage.
Yeah,
Oh.
it seems like they had issues at Sector 3. They had a very, very long Sector 3, so I got a feeling they might have gone a bit wide at Ascari, if that is anything to go by. I think might have pushed a bit too hard on the exit and definitely might have got themselves a little bit of a runoff and into the wall.
Yeah, you can see, look at the damage on the front of the car. It's all nicked up as we follow back now with this battle between Suzuka and Drift as they get by lap traffic. I believe it's Adam. Unfortunately, our relative is kind of hard to see, but yeah, I believe this is Adam. And now heading down toward the main straight. Adam trying their best to stay out of the way, but it's been a huge help to Suzuka because now they've just run away at this point.
Yeah, definitely traffic has helped Suzuka to just get out of the way and out of the danger zone that is the toes of Monza. But as we see here, 10 minutes remaining, actually less than 10 minutes remaining into this race. Unfortunately for A1, I got a feeling that it's going to be another recovery drive for them to get into P3. Unfortunately, with how hard they are pushing, as well as the fact how unforgiving the Viper is here. And I think the fatigue has definitely set in hard for them, trying to struggling to keep it on track. And it's just unfortunate. It's such a good car. It's such a car with such fast pace, and A1's just been very fast at it. But unfortunately, the car is just not behaving as it should be. And unfortunately, that has caught out A1 multiple times apparently in this race.
Yeah, they did have a few moments, even when they were fighting Wushel for the lead. You could see, oh man, more of a wiggle going out of the second chicane. I'd be interested to see how bad that damage has been hurting Afon's time. But they're slowly gaming up to Wushel, or not Wushel, to Newt. Oh, I just happened to notice they are not only on a recovery drive, they are on a super recovery drive. They just set a purple lap with damage, a 145.181. They have the pace, but they just not had the luck today. And now they're on a recovery drive again. It just seems like nothing is just going right for Afon.
I think it's just the nature of the Viper. I think Afon's trying really hard to get into P1, but unfortunately the Viper just holding on back. It's just such a temperamental car, and I think having a weird curb bump here and there definitely has caused the car to just not behave well. And I think it's going to be scary for them coming down into Ascari. Usually this is where drivers have issues out the exit curb, as you see a driver into the gravel trap and Ascari in the background, but that doesn't matter for Afon. He has to fight it in front of them. Newt just right in front of them, a second faster than the driver ahead, so definitely has the pace for it. But will they be able to be consistent enough to do for it? I think that has to be seen for now. But given that they are within towing distance, we'll see them maybe have a very good overtake on Newt, and then they'll have to fight for 8 seconds to get back into Phil. I don't think that's going to be possible, but it's still an effort nonetheless if they could.
Yeah, unfortunately, they will not get to P2. They have 7 minutes to gain 8 seconds. As we see that, I mean, but then again, as I think about it, I've said that before, and then I reminded myself of Silverstone. It's happened before. I almost want to say that I just cursed it, but here we go. Afon trying their best to try to make a move on Newt, but locking up in the third chicane, and now heading down toward Lesmo 1. They definitely have the pace, but they just not had the luck.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit unlucky for the driver, unfortunately, with a fast lap. But at the end of the day, as we say, it's not about how fast you can drive, it's how consistent you can drive. And unfortunately for them, the Viper, not really the best car to be safe in, and unfortunately has caused them to lose a position here and there. But they can definitely still get P3 back if they can get the move down into Ascari or Parabolica. With 6 minutes remaining, that time to make a move has slowly ticked down. They really have to make a move this lap, or it's going to be a bust, I think. If not, I think Newt's going to be defending extremely hard. I think it's going to be a really big problem for Afon if they don't make the move as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Afon trying their best to try to find that move. They have the pace, they just need to get around Newt. And unfortunately, it's also been hurting Afon because you can see Oily Rags behind. They're slowly but surely gaining on them. I don't think there's going to be a lot of time, but you can see Newt trying to break that draft with Afon as they head down toward the main straight into turn 1. So far, so good. But here we go. Afon trying to make an insane dive on turn 1, and they get the job done nice and clean. Late braking in the
not
corners.
done yet.
Not done yet. They get very wide into the first chicane. Into the second chicane we go. Newt getting a better run on the outside and able to save that position, but just barely.
Respect given by both of the drivers, though, to make sure that they gave gaps between all of them, or else they wouldn't have gone through it pretty well here. But side by side coming down into Delarojus, but the Viper is still unable to get past Newt in the car in front. So definitely still good respects, even though they're fighting for positions. Definitely Afon has decided to be respectful, fight for P3, and not push too hard, because if they lose this position, it's going to be even worse for the points in the standings.
Yeah, they've gained so many positions last time. It would be a shame if they lost more now. But as we can see, Afon once again trying to make a move, heading into Ascari. They're right on the bumper of Newt. They've had the pace, just not had. The car has just been so unstable. I've noticed it under braking, like when Afon tries to send it going into the corner, the car just does not agree with it. It gets very unstable. And now you can see Newt just trying to be as defensive as possible, trying to keep Afon from trying to make a lunge into the Parabolica. Now heading out of the corner, Newt with a little bit of that was a little bit of, I would want to say, dirty air going out of the Parabolica, but they were able to save it. But unfortunately, it cost them time.
Yeah, they can't afford any solid mistakes right now with 4 minutes remaining in this race. They have to make the car as planned as possible, but as you can see here, pushing it a bit too hard with the Viper. I think the Viper, given how front heavy the car is when you're braking this hard in this car, the rear just basically has no grip when the car lifts it so hard. So definitely pretty hard for them to keep it alive, but they have to. If not, they will basically lose out points for P3. They have to trust in themselves, trust in the car, but also at the same time not demand too much out of it. You gotta remember as well, they have damage, so they definitely need to make sure that they keep it in check, or else things have gone on. As we see here in the standings, Esprit has DNF, unfortunately, with 3 minutes remaining in this race. That is unfortunate for the driver, but they still got ways to go. As we see here, 3 minutes in this race, that still should be 2 laps remaining in this race, and it will be over as the timer ticks down.
Yeah, here we go. Afon once again trying to make a move on the outside of Ascari, but that's not going to happen. That's a very dangerous spot to do, and that is a very big lockup into Ascari. They just touched a little bit of too much. They just touched a little bit of grass, and the car got so unstable. Thank goodness they were able to save it, but man, that cost them so much more time again. Every time they've tried to make a move, Newt has just been a giant wall, and they've just not been able to get around them, and it's been costing Afon so much time. Here we go. Here's another battle. This is between Suzuka and
Drift 340.
Yeah, Drift 340. Yeah, and behind them is the lead car of Sarah. So this is to keep them on the lead lap, as Wushel right behind them with 2 minutes left to go. Is Xavier gonna pull a move? I don't think so.
We'll have to see in a bit, but we'll see if what they want to do with the blue flag, given that they still have a fight to fight for, but Wushel is faster. We'll see how things go by. Oh, they do let Wushel by. Unfortunately, that's going to be affecting their position for the fight with Suzuka in front of them. We'll see how easy Suzuka will let the lead car by, but this is going to be interesting to see how this will mix up the fight between the two of them as soon enough.
Yeah, I think Suzuka is going to try to maybe use Wushel as kind of like a little bit of a wall for as long as they can. It looks like Suzuka's just going to go on the wide path and let Wushel by. Minute 3 left to go. This, I believe, will be the last lap of the race. Wushel just had
Oh, it's not
basically
there
a
yet,
cruise.
though.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
one lap to go as we follow along now with this battle between Drift and Suzuka. Heading into the first chicane and into the second. Suzuka having to give it everything they've got to keep that position. It would be awesome for them to get another P8 after the chaos that was the last race. Here we go, heading into out of Curva Grande into the third chicane.
Look at F1. Yeah,
Yep. Here we
I was
go,
gonna say
A-Fon.
A1's gonna have a move on Newt. I think that's gonna be a side by side. Oh, as they make it, they make it. But will it stick though? Given they still have turn 1 and turn 2, I think that's gonna be a stick. But will Newt be able to catch up to A1 at the end of this lap? I think that's gonna be up to A1 to see how hard they're gonna defend into this few corners.
Yeah, they had an absolute run going out of Parabolica, and now they just got to try to run away with it and try to get ahead of Newt. They've been behind them long enough, but now here we go, heading into the second Lesmos. Yeah, unfortunately, A-Fon is pulling away. That's going to be that. Super unfortunate. They were having a really good battle, but, it came down to the last lap. This will be the last lap as we follow along.
Oh,
and right behind them, that's Suzuka. They must have had a mistake at some point. Here we go, and unfortunately, Drift is going to get ahead of. Yep, and there it is. Wushel right in front, winning. Here at Monza, and is it going to be down to the line? I think Drift was able to get by them and keep the position.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Suzuka did lose out on the final lap. That was definitely a good run to stay behind Suzuka. Unfortunately, that is going to be a loss for them. And Phil getting P2, despite being so far away from A1 at the start of the race. Definitely consistent driving from Phil, and that definitely has given them P2. And A1 with a recovery drive in P3 with Newt in P4. So good driving all around for these drivers here.
Yeah, amazing drive. Things were definitely getting very interesting in different spots as we follow on with Oily in P5 with Newt in P4. So definitely a good run as Vossi now heads out of Parabolical. They will take P6, followed by Sadcat, Drift, and Suzuka. And finally, M&U will wrap out the top 10.
Yeah, glad to see these drivers slowly coming into the checkered flag. Glad to see these drivers, pushing it hard, pushing it strong with these cars. They definitely look like they were really hard to drive and control here. So glad to see that these drivers still held it together and finished this race.
Yeah, absolutely. As we follow along now with Wushel, another dominant run. Things got very tight in the beginning, but unfortunately, that bad pit stop was all it took, and then all Wushel had to do was just drive at that point. And amazing job by Wushel to just keep it clean.
Yeah, nice to see everything has sorted out, and it's glad to see Wushel has won it. They definitely had a good run last time around at Road America, and they definitely have a better run this time around at Monza. Pretty easy drive for them, besides the fight at the start with A1, but other than that, after the pit stops, it has been just cruising for them, even though A1 has gotten the fastest lap in this session with a 1:45.18. Definitely a very fast driver, a very fast car. Unfortunately, just unable to keep it on track for them.
Ooh, what was that? Was that messed up?
At P1. I think that's Maston, but I think that's Wushel just parking it on P1 on the start grid. That's funny.
Yeah, they were having some celebratory donuts, and I just happened to notice there was a car flying in at the very end, and I was like, oh no, this might end badly. But thankfully, they were able to save it. Good job for Wushel. This is going to really help them in their points because RK was not racing this race, and overall it was a fairly interesting race. But other than the big accident on the first attempt, things were, other than mistakes here and there wasn't anything huge. To be honest,
and glad that everyone had kept it as clean as possible. There have been some off tracks here and there, and also things in the gravel. But other than that, It's been pretty well. I think it's about time to wrap it up, I suppose. Next round, final round for this series. It's a short series, so there's only 4 rounds here. It's going to be at Hockenheim. That's going to be a very interesting track to be in. I think next round will be commentated by between me, Newbie, as well as Wolfin as well. Unfortunately for Frey, they have started their studies again, so I'll be taking over for them for this for the remaining of the season. So hope to see you guys next week in the same channel. We're gonna be at Hockenheim, and we'll see how the BOPSLs, how these cars react to Hockenheim as a track goes, because I think the 2001 layout for Hockenheim is a bit different than the modern layout, so it's going to be interesting to see how the cars work there. I know that's not, is it the very long layout
It
that
is.
Hockenheim
It
used to
is the
have?
very long
Oh
layout.
god.
This is the
Ew.
original long straight and long layout that was before Paliku'i decided to turn it into whatever it is now. In my opinion, I like the longer layout. What do you want?
I mean,
Um,
it is reminiscent of old school circuits, but it's definitely less technical and more straight line speeds for sure.
yeah, and that's going to be a huge advantage for like the V8s, like the Celine and I believe uh the Vipers. Maybe my brain
We'll have
just
to see.
shut off.
We'll have to see later.
Yeah.
But as we see here, we're all getting a bit tired, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thanks, Wolfin, for being here. Thanks, Polly, for being our broadcaster. As always, you always have the best graphics as well as the best ways to make the broadcast interesting for us. So we'll see you guys next week at Hockenheim, same timing, and hopefully you have a clean race next week as well. This is Simufur signing off, and see you all next round. Bye.